we've kind of indicated that throughout this whole entire discussion point. So this is an opportunity for us to diversify that solar to take full advantage of the weather patterns that we might see across Kansas. Here and them being sunny are a lot greater, and we're just going to use more of the solar that way
Right.
versus having it all concentrated in one area.
So Jeff, what is 1 megawatt of the Pratt project? I mean, we were talking about 3 before, right?
Yeah, we have us bonding our own solar. It's really 4 community solar, kind of like the one we did with the 1 megawatt out here at the Public Works, and then 2 GRDA, which is your base energy. It's always constant. Doesn't matter if the sun's up, sun's down, and then the Pratt project. So there's really kind of 4 options.
So, well, if we just did 1 megawatt with the Pratt project, is there, like, can we increase that at some point? Or is this just, we'd have to renew a different contract if we wanted to increase it?
I don't believe that there would be any more available on that project. Their intent was we had first, PMEA had first rights to the total output from this solar facility, and then they were talking to another entity on taking what's left. So
Okay, yeah, I remember
their
that.
intention is to have it all spoken for. So if you say a year down the road you wanted to add on to that, it's probably not going to be available through that project. That's not saying that there isn't another project somewhere that could
Right, okay,
appear.
okay. That's the question I had for you. I like the project just because it's dependable. I mean, we'll always have that as opposed to solar. I mean, if we want to increase the solar and just go with the one with the Pratt, I don't know. I'm leaning towards the Pratt with more.
And not doing any of the community solar?
No, I'm not saying that.
Oh. Yeah, and that's I think what I'm saying. You don't want to overbuild, you don't want to overbuy or overcommit. So if you do one of the Pratt, to say, for example, what KMEA is suggesting, 3 and 2, that would still, I mean, you could still get there by doing 2 megawatts in community solar. That inches us towards that, and then depend on GRDA. I mean, that guy indicated last time that he's more comfortable with 1.75. Corey said 1. I said 1.5. You know, we're all over the place, and that'll be part of the longer discussion.
Okay, but don't we want to know what we're going to do with that before we decide on what we're going to do with this one?
We don't have a choice but to decide on what we're doing with this one.
Well, I know we have to do that tonight, but I'm talking about how you're going to compare all of the different things.
Yeah.
Ideally, I think we would have a whole plan laid out of.
We kind of have one foot ahead of the other.
Right.
This whole conversation.
Unfortunately,
and
we're
it's
down to
just
the
nature
wire.
of it.
Right.
I will say, we didn't talk about that 1 megawatt of Pratt in budget, so it's kind of new to my ears. The concerns that jump out, I like the idea. I think it's the idea that if it's sunny in Pratt and it's rainy here, you know, that's nice. Vice versa, it could be sunny here and rainy in Pratt. But the 2 concerns that I have, the primary one is that the conversation about how many megawatts of GRDA was based around that base constant energy and not having that variability of sunny or cloudy days. Having 1 megawatt of that in Pratt does take care of some of that, but you could have 2 cloudy days and still be in the same boat. And it doesn't really make me feel that much more confident in that. How much of that base energy do you give up, you know, as you go for more solar? The other thing that concerns me, that if our intention is to go forward with a solar project, whether it be community solar or we bond it ourselves, if we give 1 megawatt of that away to the Pratt project, then we wouldn't get potentially 40 to 60% of those tax credits that we would be getting from our own project for doing it ourselves. And so we would be missing out. That 1 megawatt would potentially, that would cost 1 full megawatt, whereas 1 megawatt, if we bonded it ourselves, would be 40 to 60% of a megawatt that we have to purchase. So the other concern, and it's a little bit secondary because we are over on capacity, but if let's say you are borrowing one from Pratt and you're going forward with 1 megawatt from Pratt, and you're taking away from GRDA, then you are giving up half the capacity. So if you were going to go for GRDA anyway, which the kilowatt per hour prices are similar, you are giving up half the capacity because you can't count on solar all 24 hours of a day. You can only count on for a smaller portion. So those are my kind of 3 concerns there. I would be more inclined to get more of GRDA under our belt than going after 1 megawatt of Pratt, because I feel it's a little bit of a redundancy if our intention is to go and do our own, I'll call it aggressive solar project.
So, but if we only did 2 megawatts of community solar, that would potentially allow us not to have to purchase any land, which then reduces our power cost on that 2 megawatts by what, 1 to 2 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah, pretty close. What it does is it reduces the cost because of land and also because of the project could be smaller also. So it's a net gain if you look at it that way.
But the range that we had talked about in the work session and in committee was the 3 to 5 megawatt range. This is the first I'm hearing of 2. So bring me up to speed. Glenn, when you did your presentation, you kind of forecasted everything out. 3 was great, and then 4 was even better, and 5 was some real savings for the community. So to regress back to 2 is,
But it's the cost of land in there.
even with the land cost, we had that plugged in.
It still would work, but yeah, this is kind of for the sake of diversity of your sources. So it's either GRDA versus Pratt, and how you look at that. This does fix a price for for 30 years. GRDA can fluctuate, so there's a trade-off on that. So it's a trade-off then between Pratt Solar, which we have similar projects right now. Your hydropower and wind power are all imported. They're PPAs, all
Mhm.
very similar agreements to that. They're long-term. I think our hydro even goes out 50 years. So that's a federal project, but the other ones tend to be like 20 years or a little bit longer than that. So it'd be very similar to like a wind power project that we have a couple of those out in the central part of the
Sure.
So kind of think of it that way versus the just a straight solar. So it's a lot of ways to think about it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
depends on what your preference is. I mean, it sounds like we want as much solar as we possibly can. There are good tax incentives out there right now to do that. We just have to identify.
That's
the
kind of my
land.
point, is that why give 1 megawatt of those tax
Yeah.
incentives away to Pratt?
Well,
But I don't.
The reason I like Pratt too is that it is going to be the same price all the time.
So, yeah, so would
I
ours.
mean, it's not gonna fluctuate up and down.
But neither would our own project if we bonded it or did community solar. That stays flat too. It's all about when the sun's
Right,
up.
but it's more risky. It's not something that's gonna be stable.
Well, and I think you hedge that risk with, and this is I'm not against it. I'm really not. I'm playing a little bit of DA here, but also for the point of making a good decision. If your concern is risk, then GRDA is your answer, because that's a constant flow of power. They got 50% natural gas, hydro, wind, solar. I mean, you ain't running out of energy. I mean, and they've done their own hedging, as he was talking about last council meeting, or it was the work session, where they've
No, I think there's a happy medium though to
Well, that's what-
balancing risk with.
I think that's what I was trying. What Glenn's intent was to come up with a happy medium in between
Right.
GRDA, Pratt, and community solar, and by going at least 1 megawatt with Pratt, that gives us our fixed
Yeah.
on the community solar. Then we move into on solar.
Doesn't the GRDA, since they use mostly natural gas, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
isn't their price fluctuating?
It does, but
With the price of,
right.
Right.
The gentleman, I can't remember his name from KMEA. The way, what was his name?
Neil Daney.
Neil. Yeah. He kind of presented more of the business side of GRDA and their we use Winter Storm Uri as an example of how their prices really didn't fluctuate that much, like other people's did, who hadn't hedged a lot of their energy and purchased ahead of time and all that. So he kind of talked about how we were cushioned from that a little bit and made me feel a little bit better about GRDA. Because I'll be honest, I kind of came in being like, I don't know how many megawatts of GRDA we need if we're going after an aggressive solar project, and the open market at nighttime is better priced than any of this. So where's but I understand hedging that risk, and we aren't making decisions just like a bunch of people at a poker table here. We're dealing with community members with real money, so you do have to be careful, and you do have to make good, careful, safe decisions. And I'm totally open to that. My point being is that if you're wanting to make a safe decision, I think more of the GRDA, so you always have that base load. And Jeff, maybe you could speak more to that, because I think that was one of the main concerns coming out of your department was that base load. And
Yeah, I don't think we want to completely give up the GRDA project.
right.
I think we need to have a minimum. Like Casey said, we all have different numbers, but somewhere between 1.5 and 2 megawatts, I think, should be minimum as far as that around the clock. And it's 100% capacity where the solar is 40 to 50%.
Right.
So that's the other advantage to that particular project. There is one thing I'd like to say about the splitting the solar, and this is the first I've heard of it, so things are just kind of coming to my mind. But I don't know what that does to the pricing of the community solar, because and maybe Glenn, you have an answer to this, but there are certain items in the project that you have to have regardless of the size. A transformer, a recloser switch, some of the infrastructure costs are what they are depending on, and it doesn't matter what the size is to a degree. So I don't know if we're talking dropping the number of community solar megawatts we have on hand, whether or not the prices play out to what we had with the 3 megawatt
That
project.
was my concern, was dropping down to 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it not forecasting out the same, that especially that 20-year mark.
Glenn, have you had any conversation with?
No, I haven't. This is some kind of came up late because of the the nature of this, and we had kind of this decision point here that we need to hear tonight. So on Pratt. So so no, I don't think it'd be tremendously different. Yeah, but I don't know what the number would be.
But I also don't think that, I mean, we can always add on to that system, the 2 megawatt.
That's right.
So we can be, even if we're conservative, we still have the system in place that if we wanted to add a megawatt to that system, then those components you're discussing are already in place as well.
But I'm hearing this would be on property we already own
Or adjacent to,
tonight. So,
or adjacent to you.
so
We wouldn't have to buy as much property.
would there be room to add an additional?
I think that's everything we can look. We'll have to look at, and it may be where we say let's just go with 3, and that changes our GRDA numbers. I mean, we just have to keep playing with it. Really, I mean, to me, I was looking at the diversification, so you don't have all your power or a lot of your power concentrated in one physical area, especially when you're relying on sunlight.
That's one thing that Baldwin has done a great job in diversification of their portfolio. I mean, it's phenomenal how many different projects we have to, to not put all of our eggs in one basket. To me, it just seems like it would make more sense to either do the 3 Pratt or the 3 community instead of splitting them up, but because of the infrastructure costs. But I guess I'd have to see what that number actually boils out to be. And I know there's a lot of information for one night's decision.
I just feel more comfortable that if we're going to do it, we've talked about Pratt for the last year or two, at least taking a sliver of it. We're not taking a lot. We're taking a sliver. I mean, the reality is we're only going to get 700 kilowatts off of this most of the time. I mean, right? You get by a megawatt, you're not going to get a full megawatt, as we've seen in our own solar system. I mean, our solar system.
No, you can call it.
It
does work.
Way out there.
Yeah.
It does work.
You actually,
Right. I mean, most of the time we're only getting 70% or less.
well, that's not because of that. I mean, it's going to be rated, one is DC and one is AC.
Yeah,
so
it's the
you'll
inverters
get-
con-
yeah, so you'll
converting it
get
from
close
DC
to
to,
the- you'll get close to the-
alternating current. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so by adding 1 megawatt of Pratt and still going forward with our own solar project, the only thing that you're really doing is it really isn't diversifying it much. I mean, if it's only 7/10 of a megawatt, I mean, how big of an impact is that going to make when you're the whole point of this is to get one sunny day out of Pratt when you have a cloudy day type situation. I don't see where you buy much security here. I would say if security is what you want, if you want to feel safer, I would take that megawatt and give it to the GRDA contract, and then go after your own solar project, because I'm a little frustrated because we've only spoken about 3 to 5 megawatts, and now we're tossing around 2. And when it was presented 3, and this was with land acquisition built in, plugged into the Excel sheet, 3 were like, oh, okay, that's pretty similar, that's right on par. 4 looked really good, and 5 looked great. The whole spirit of this is to save the citizens money. It's to make Baldwin more affordable, and I don't see where adding 1 megawatt of Pratt really helps us with that endeavor long term.
But it does if you run the numbers on the land acquisition part.
But the other numbers were land acquisition didn't have that big of an impact on the forecasted 20-year numbers, especially the 30-year numbers that we were looking at. So it's kind of coming in last minute here, and I feel like we didn't discuss under any 2 megawatt context, and I just feel uncomfortable not seeing an Excel sheet with this plugged in and going that way. I mean, we already have a lot to keep track of in our heads. I'm not saying that new information is unwelcomed or it shouldn't be considered, but given that there's so many moving parts to this, and we had one really, really good explanation where it was forecasted out with the 3 to 5 range, I would feel uncomfortable stepping back to 2 when I thought 3 was kind of iffy. I would be against voting for bringing in Pratt. I would go more towards GRDA and get all of our tax credits from that 1 megawatt of energy on our own dime. Personally, that's it.
One difference in going all that at GRDA is that's around the clock hours.
Right.
Any solar project is only going to be peak hours.
Correct.
So, doing more than 2 or 3 of GRDA and no solar.
No, that's not what I'm saying. In my hypothetical, let's say at the very bare minimum, and I know you said 1.5 was probably what your floor would be on GRDA, and I was tossing around last council meeting 1. So it would be the difference between 1 and 2 for me, rather than 2 to 3 and then still doing solar, because at some point you're pumping too much energy into the town that you're not using, and we don't, questions about whether or not we can push it back and sell it. So that's my concern.
And the other comment about that we've been talking about 3 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
If we do 1 Pratt and 2 community, that does get us a 3 of solar combined.
But those 3 to 5 were forecasted for the purpose of bonding a project. That doesn't help. Taking 1 away and giving it to Pratt doesn't help us with our bonding forecast. As it got more and more affordable for citizens, the more megawatts you added.
But it did when you added in and took away the land cost, and you could do 2 megawatts on current land that we.
When did we plug that in and look at that?
Glenn did. I mean, like I said at the beginning, Glenn and I had a discussion about this. So that's
I haven't
why I'm
seen
bringing
it.
in
I haven't seen it, and I have to vote. And I haven't seen it. I saw what 3 to 5 did, and what we discussed with GRDA, and
Well, Glenn's right here. He's ran the numbers. He can speak to that. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, hey.
Why not?
Can you pull it up?
I don't. I don't know if I can just do that on the fly. To be honest with you, the choice would have been, between, right now GRDA we got 3 megawatts. The discussion we had last time was we'll probably settle around 2, and so that leaves you 3 more megawatts. You want to do 3 in community solar, or do you want to split that between Pratt, or do you want to do all 3 with Pratt? Those are your those are your decision points. So the difference between, as Jeff said, you got round the clock protection with GRDA, although there's PCA built in, so it's not fixed over 25 years. It does adjust. Pratt would be a fixed product for the 30 years, so you do have that protection
But so would ours.
built
So
in.
would ours.
And well, yeah, ours would too. And so the trade-off then is you want the one at the one level that they quoted us would come in at, or do you want to go ahead and purchase land and build our own, and kind of showed you what those numbers would be with a 30, 40, and 60% tax credits. So those are the choices right now. So the way I was thinking about this, and I guess the discussion I had with the mayor, is that we go with like 2 megawatts of GRDA, 1 Pratt, and then do 2 internally to cut down on the land cost and be able to fit it in to perhaps a land that we already owned, or readily be adjacent land. So we would be out there making a huge purchase for land, and you could get the 2 on there. So we still end up with a total of 4 solar, and they're both at a pretty good price at that point.
Is the current land that we have, is the ceiling of that 2 megawatts? Is that we can't do anything more than 2 megawatts?
You mean in our current that we have, right?
Current land that we own.
Yeah. If you're talking about out by the plant, without taking out a lot of trees to the west, there wouldn't be room for another.
What about the east field at the lake?
At the lake, we figured we could put in about 2.5 out there, pushing 3 actually. So that would be the other spot. And that would cost an upgrade in lines out there, but that would be eligible for the tax credit.
Right.
So-
And that's the big miss with Pratt, is we don't get any of those tax credits, right?
No, they take that. I mean, that's part of their project is the tax credit, but they will fix it for 30 years. So that's the trade-off with that project.
I mean, for me, and I'll speak just for me, the whole chase of this solar project, and doing it ourselves and not doing it the same way we did with the community solar before, where it was kind of, they purchased it, they did the capital investment, then we have the option at year 7 or whatever to buy it back. The chase for me has always been the affordability piece. And I think the numbers that I saw forecasted out with at least 3 excited me about how low those rates would be going up to year 20, and then especially after year 20 through year 30 and beyond. I don't understand what giving Pratt a 1 megawatt contract and taking away from us having that potential savings for our citizens down the road. Why would we do that?
I guess, again, for me, it's diversification of it. It's, if our system goes down, we lose all 3, then you're not getting a majority of the solar that you're intending to get. Diversifying it also protects your system on that as well, to where you're still getting solar from somewhere.
Also, I'd feel more comfortable committing more to the community solar project if we were further along in that conversation, and we knew, we had the land, and we all knew how we were moving, what the path forward was on that project. But there's a lot of variables there, and I just don't feel comfortable putting all of our eggs in that basket. And we've got an opportunity to get solar and it's going to be a fixed cost for what, 30 years, you said?
Yeah, it's a 30-year
Yeah.
Years
PPA.
with Pratt.
Yeah. So I just feel like it would be foolish on our part
And
to pass.
Or I want to reiterate, I am not opposed, and as we go through this, it may make more sense to go 3 megawatts on our side, especially if we decide to use city land and run the numbers. I think that's still, and Susan's right. We are very young in that community solar. I mean, I think we just have proposals. We don't even have engineering or hard bids or anything like that. It's just a proposal. So this is hard. I mean, guys, I'm not gonna say that this is an easy decision by any means. I just hate to give away an opportunity to buy at least a portion of. But
You have to, but if you want to grow your solar, you have to give up these opportunities. If you do, and it doesn't. The cost of this, the savings passed on to the citizens only improves when you build your own. We saw it.
when it's
That's
off-
my chase. I don't want to give any of those megawatts away, because you can only. I mean, you can putting in a 10 megawatt project in Baldwin does no good if you can't You can't sell it back. We don't have the infrastructure to sell 10 megawatts back. We've talked about the battery technology and how as time goes on, in 10, maybe hopefully not 10 years, but possibly up to 10 years, with the batteries that we're able to add and go on, that this solar energy does become base energy because it's stored overnight. You have it; it's always constant. This is all coming from the perspective of us doing our own investment in our own bonded project. This is a waste of a megawatt. I mean, you gain the diversity, but as far as the affordability piece and that 20 to 30 year mark that we were looking at, where we're really passing on some major savings to citizens, I'd rather have that rolled into that project than this. And just, I don't think you're diversifying yourself that much, and you're also giving up the tax credits.
My feeling is that we should do 2 megawatts with Pratt and a megawatt and a half to 2 with GRDA, and then we can always add our own community solar.
We would have to grow at a very, very aggressive rate to use all those megawatts, though. The appeal of the 3 megawatt system that we had is that it's bonded, it's locked in, and at year 20, it's paid off. You have about a 90% efficiency with 0.5% loss a year. And it's free at that point. That is 3 free megawatts, with the exception of O&M, of maintaining it, which is a fixed rate as well.
But who's
That's the chase.
Yeah.
This is all this solar project came in the spirit of affordability, and I feel like it's getting lost in this kind of last minute Pratt discussion that we've never had before.
you have to have the reliability side too. But I'm going to add to that, Corey. Who says that we can't do 3 megawatts still in community solar?
Well,
What if we do 1.5 of GRDA, 1 Pratt, and 3 community solar? We're at 5.5 megawatts. I mean, that's not that far out there, is it, Jeff? I mean, I got to point to you.
at some point though, your solar is outshining your contracts. I mean, you're not gaining anything from having your solar if you're locked into these contracts, and you have to use that energy first. So what right now? What are we pulling? 2 megawatts maybe right now?
No. From our solar?
Right now? No, right now. Currently,
Our city load is probably 3.5 to 4 right now.
right now. I mean, so that's at night.
That's not peak time. Solar's producing most in the peak.
I know that. I know that. That's the point that I'm trying to make, though. So that's how much. So this is no solar right now. These are our contracts running. We're not buying off the open market right now. We're buying from our contracts, those locked in rates.
We do occasionally buy off the open market.
Right.
Times that we exceed,
Hot July night, maybe. Everyone's running the air conditioners, maybe.
not necessarily only then.
Okay. But for the point of the conversation, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that you start adding all these contracts where you'd have to be, if you want to add 3 megawatts, then and you're already having, let's say on a cool fall day, 4.5 megawatts, those have to go to your contracts. Your solar's not doing you any favors unless you can sell it back.
And you can, and
But you had some concerns about that up to a certain megawatt
there's
threshold.
concerns about if and how much we can push back. So your question was if we went 1 Pratt and 3 additional community, correct?
And 1.5 GRDA.
And 1.5 GRDA. To me, that would be pushing how much total you would want to have in community. Because if you have 3 community and you have the one we already have, if it's working to its full extent, that's almost 4 megawatts, and it would be producing at certain times of the year that we didn't have 4 megawatts of load. This afternoon would be a good example. This afternoon, we were at like 3.2, 3.3. The solar field was not doing hardly anything because of the inverters being down. But on a day that they're all working, we are definitely pushing back at certain times. I don't know if that's a good thing at this point, and that would change as our city load grows. But as of today, 3 more in town seems a little much. I'm not going to say it's not doable.
3 more in town with the megawatt from Pratt.
What we already have.
Just regardless, 3 more in town is a little much.
There will be times that we will push for sure. Because we did a study back when we talked about doing another 2 a few years ago. We did a study of how many hours that would mean that we would be pushing over, and it was, I don't remember the number,
That's the point that I've been trying to. That's the part that I'm trying to catch. So when you add one other contract on here, that's just adding to one more megawatt that you have to push back potentially with. So it's taken up a spot is
On a hot summer day,
is what I'm
it's
trying to
awesome.
say.
It's probably very much in the
Right,
money at that
right.
point, but it's not always a hot summer day.
How often is our current solar system?
I like it. I think you should just roll right into it. I mean,
It's getting
It's
late.
easy to say.
let's change the way we call.
How often is our current community solar down? I know we've had some problems, but how often is it down?
It would probably be easier to tell you how often that it's been 100%.
I the comparing these two is not even close.
Well, you have to though. I mean, that's our history.
They're apples and oranges. These don't even track the sun. The ones we've discussed would.
That's regard.
They've had so many
the
problems with those inverters, and
Yeah, but so the problems we've had is the inverters, not that it can't track the sun. That's
well, you have what you get out of those solar panels, and tracking the sun has a huge impact on that.
but not
They're not
about it.
static.
Not about it operating or not operating.
And that's another conversation. And
That's what I asked: is how often is it operating versus not operating, not how much electricity it's generating.
for the purpose of illustrating how this one's going to run, I don't think you can compare the two because I think this one has been unique, and we've had a lot of people tell us that these inverter problems are unique, that other communities haven't dealt with it the same way.
But it's a possibility.
Of course, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. A tornado can hit the whole thing.
Is there on this Pratt contract? Is there any guarantee to us that they don't have the same problems, or their run time, or their operation times, or their up times?
As far as I know, there are no minimums that they say that they will produce, but the good part of that project is if it's not producing, we're not paying them a dime, because we only pay for what we receive from them. When you're talking about your own project, that's not the case. If you're down, then you're still paying your bond and your O&M and all of that, but you're not receiving the benefit of the energy. So, there's good points to both projects, and that's why when they get close to being similar in price, then to me it could go either way, and we're doing the best we can.
Yeah.
And I'm with Corey, and I don't think a second facility would have the kind of problems that we currently have. Not to say that there wouldn't be any problems, but this was an issue with equipment that has not been completely ratified. So I think there is a desire for Evergy to get that ratified because it is a power purchase agreement, and they're not anywhere close to hitting their budget on that project.
No.
So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've talked to citizens about this too, and I get anywhere from take all 3 GRDA that you can get and don't worry about solar to, hey, let's add as much solar as we can. So, that again, this is a hard decision for us to make tonight.
Not when you come at it from the context of affordability. It's not. We've seen how that was forecast out, and especially after that 20-year.
Yeah, that's with the Pratt project, right?
That's us bonding it. That's us bonding our own. The Pratt project's locked in, and after year 20, or 30, you got to go find a new contract. After year 20 of what we bonded out, that would be cheaper than that rate.
Right, for the next 10
free.
years.
Be free.
Right.
90% of what you're getting right now.
Why wouldn't we go with that?
That's what I'm trying to say.
And if we don't have to pay for stuff that we're not getting, that's another plus.
Are you talking regarding the Pratt project?
Yes. Because Jeff said if we're not getting anything from him, then we don't have to pay.
Okay, so that's a good point. So to clarify that a little bit, so are you saying that let's say we put in our own 10 megawatt solar project, we don't have to buy the energy from these people, from any of these contracts, or do we have a bare minimum that we're required to take from them?
if we put our own,
Yeah, we put our own. Let's say we do 1 megawatt of Pratt, and then we put our own. I'm just for the sake of the argument, put in just a massive solar, and we have so much solar that we're producing that we would never even need Pratt. do we have to buy that 1 megawatt still first? Is there a hierarchy of what energy we have to take first before we can use our own solar? Or is it just to go onto the load and that whatever's, so if we don't need, if our load is, our solar is producing everything that we need for our load, we're not buying anything for that.
No, it's in the contract. You're taking the energy whether or not.
That's what I thought. And
But he
that's
was-
my concern.
But he was saying that if they're not producing out there, the energy,
Right.
then
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not paying for
No,
it.
you can't you can't pay for something they're not producing. I get that.
Yeah, that's what he was.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the whole chase of the solar was that affordability piece, especially if that you're 20. I'm going to repeat it again. And that, so if you have 1 megawatt in the way of Pratt that we have to use regardless, that we can't be using with that 40% tax credit up to 60, depending on how the government defines us, the different low income thresholds. I mean, to me, it's just a no brainer. I mean, Pratt's a redundancy. I would be more on board if diversification of our was a concern, but Neil from KMEA was just applauding us for how diverse we already were. I think that we can give up a little bit of diversity there for what the spirit of this conversation was all along, and that was that affordability piece. This is the first I'm hearing of diversity.
Corey, can I address that?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So, the numbers that Glenn produced for you on that spreadsheet are a 30-year number.
Yes.
So, what it looks at, if you look at the details, the first 20 years of a community solar project, the price will be higher than the cost that we would buy that same energy from Pratt. And in year 21, that drops to like the 10%. But the overall all-in levelized cost over 30 years are within 10%, depending on whether or not we get 30 or 40% tax credit. If you go back, and I'm going off numbers in my head, but they're within 10% of the 30-year levelized cost of Pratt compared to a community project.
Right.
So you're talking about huge savings in year 21. There it is, but the first 20 years you have increased costs over the Pratt project.
So I was very clear about that when we presented. I thought that the first 20 years, those were the same numbers, and that everything thereafter was broken apart separately.
Yeah, but they're pretty close. It depends number of factors in there, the interest rate on whatever you're bonding,
Right.
What the RECs will sell at, and
Right.
those numbers.
But
were
Land acquisition.
but what you're
acquisition costs and all
Right.
those have to be factored in there, and we did. But
we didn't net out 10 years of free energy into the first 20. We were calculating 20. We were calculating the whole bond project.
Did both actually, so you can see how it compares
Sure,
to 30 years, because the Pratt project is 30 years, so we compared it. You know, if you were doing 3 megawatts there versus 3 megawatts of community solar,
Right.
so
But our
you can see
bond
what
is-
year by year were.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a number of assumptions in there right now about what current interest rates are. Don't know what the land costs will be, if any. If we use our own, then you can take that out.
But the 20-year bond those were the numbers. So that was a bond payment 1 through year 20.
Yep.
Those are the numbers we used. We didn't factor in 10 free years, and then for it to dilute
Well,
those
after
numbers.
20, yeah, then that's the levelized cost that Jeff was talking. But that's
That's
industry.
and that's when we got Christmas in our eyes. I mean,
Right. Yeah, that's
but
your cost is O&M, and that's basically it. So
correct.
So yeah, that's 20 years. But in the interim, there, you can sell the RECs, you got capacity, you got. So, but those are assumptions at this point. They're not, they're not fixed yet. You'd have to actually commit to the project to find out.
So is the real question then, are we so indecisive about our own solar project that we're wanting to latch on to this 1 megawatt of Pratt, even though we still have an opportunity to buy more of GRDA as that conversation evolves? And for me, I'll answer for myself. I'm very comfortable passing on Pratt, knowing that if our solar conversation goes south and we're like, this is too scary, I want off, we can always buy more GRDA. The benefits far outweigh the little bit of safety that we feel right now because we're not far enough along in the solar conversation. We can always We can always get the same rate, relatively same rate. I know you have the PCA, but it's not as drastic as it once was, as Neil presented the other night.
But isn't the GRDA more expensive than the Pratt?
You're paying a little bit more because it's a constant base rate. It's always there, night, day, all that, and it was
Correct.
elevated a little bit.
Correct. Yeah. But I guess I'm confused on that because couldn't you say the same thing then about as we go through the community solar that if we buy 1 megawatt of Pratt, then the community solar, we did 3 of that, you could back down GRDA or ramp it back up or whatever. I mean, you still have that lever to pull regardless.
Right.
I
Does that make sense?
I don't think that we have an opportunity to buy from GRDA or increase once this opportunity's up.
Correct, which isn't until the end of next year. But
Right.
I mean, I know they're one.
That's what I'm saying. We have time. I mean, we can if we're serious about the affordability piece and what we've seen with doing our own solar project, going up to possibly expanding to 5 megawatts and what that can do for this community and people's wallets. If we're serious about that, then I think if you're afraid and want to jump onto Pratt right now because it feels uneasy, you have another year to grab onto another megawatt of GRDA.
GRDA's contract will be renewed in first quarter, not the end of the year.
At the end of the first quarter?
At the end of first quarter is drop
Okay.
dead on GRDA. So
Okay.
you have 3 months, not a year.
Yeah, the contract expires in 26.
Yes.
But they're going to want to know first quarter of 25.
They want contracts signed for the renewal of the project by the end of the quarter.
Yeah.
This conversation can evolve a lot by then, I think.
I still maintain, I'd like to see us get, one of Pratt. I like the security of it. I like the fact that it's locked in, for 30 years.
Ours is locked in. If we do our own, it's locked in.
They're not gonna see that savings until 30 years from now.
That's how you make affordability decisions. They're all long-term decisions. If everyone can make quick, affordable decisions at this level, they would. I mean,
But I don't think affordability is the only factor here. We also have to take into consideration, reliability.
I don't think we need to. We had Neil from KMEA telling us how above all other communities, we are in a very good place with diversity. I'm not afraid of that for everything that I've seen. We are very diversified as is right now. And we're diversified right now with 3 megawatts of GRDA. We're talking about going down to 1.5 possibly as low. I mean, so we're diverse now. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to the point that I would give up this opportunity, this rare opportunity to become more affordable down the road. We're not going to blow anyone's hats off right now, but
I agree, but I would feel more comfortable if we were, like I said earlier, if we were further down the road in this conversation, and I'd feel much more comfortable.
I know, but
committing to
one
that.
impacts the other though. I mean, so for what Jeff was saying, if we have that 1 megawatt for Pratt in the way, then adding more solar, I mean, it doesn't get more affordable because you can't add to the rate that you need to get to that really affordable piece. I've said it a bunch of different ways. That's how I feel, and everyone, it's right to their own opinion. That's mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gamble. I think either way, however the council decides to, move through this, because we are working off of a bunch of assumptions at this.
Right.
I get it. I
So-
get it.
It's all
I mean,
a gamble.
It's yeah, and you're right. I mean, I can go either way. So it's
Julie, what are your
I
thoughts?
yeah.
Well, I'd rather have some from Pratt than nothing. And the other part too that I want to note is that I don't think that we should buy any land if we can use our own.
I agree with that. I get your frustration, Corey, because affordability, especially when it comes to utilities, is huge. I just, I think that that's also a great opportunity, and it's also, I mean, we're still taking affordability into consideration when we're getting a locked-in price for 30 years.
Glenn, let me ask you on the bid you provided to us, or I guess the proposals on the community solar. Did you talk to those companies about how fixed that is? How, I mean, what's the chances of that cost going up 10, 15% on us between now and when we make a decision on community solar?
Well, most of the equipment they would have, they've already have on hand, so they don't have to go out. They're anticipating, changes in the market, changes in tariff change. So a lot of what they're doing right now is what they call safe harboring. A lot of the materials and whatever, so it's already, within their reach. So they're not have to go out and order something, wait 6 months for that to happen. So those are pretty good estimates. If we were to say we're going to go out right now, which that's not the decision we're making tonight, we're talking about Pratt, but that's as close as you could come to. And I don't even really think it'll be the material cost right now. It's going to be land price, interest rates, and those other things that we've been talking about. What you can sell the RECs for and capacity charge and all that. So those would be the sort of unknowns, but everybody's got a pretty good handle on those right now. They don't fluctuate that much.
And on your worksheet, I don't remember the exact numbers, but how confident were you on the interest rates and all of that?
Be confident in interest rates. I get a report actually every day from a couple different sources that show what the municipal bond market is right now for our type of a project at a non-taxable. And right now you're in there about 3.5%, and it's been there for about 6 months to a year. We've been around 3.5%, and we've stayed there for a while. So that's a pretty good number, I would say, at this point.
So I guess my ultimate question is, how confident are you in the number that as Corey indicated, when we did go from, even at the high cost land, I think we were 2 cents difference between Pratt and community solar.
Pratt is less affordable than what we were talking about. This is not an affordable decision.
With those assumptions of whether you're going to get the 30 or 40 or even 60% tax credit, so you can see those scenarios how you land on that. And so most of those scenarios, you're going to have a slight advantage toward your community solar if all those work out. So if that's what you're strictly looking at, it's probably what you would do. But if you're looking for more diversification or something else or whatever that factors in, you'd probably diversify a little more and go the other route. So wish I had a better crystal ball for you, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean that's what it
Ask
is.
yourselves. I mean, as individual people voting here, ask yourselves. I mean, do you feel confident that we're moving forward toward our own solar project? I mean, that's a real question you have to answer, because if it's yes, punt Pratt. If it's not, then latch on to Pratt and feel better. But if what we discussed at the work session made you feel good about the future and affordability of Baldwin City, what are we messing with Pratt for? It's more expensive than what we were talking about. This is a less affordable decision. The kilowatt hours higher than even the lowest. We plugged in expensive land. I don't see it. I'm sorry, guys, I don't see it.
I mean, Corey, I guess I don't see it that black and white. Just for me personally, is it. I don't disagree that this decision has ramifications on all these other decisions that we have coming up over the next 90 days, but I don't know.
I mean, diversification that's now being said at this meeting in particular for the first time ever. We have not talked about diversity at all, and we've been told by our consultant how diverse we already are. Why are we talking about diversity right now? And we're talking about
always been something that's been taken into consideration when acquiring.
But it's not diverse. It's 1 megawatt of solar versus another megawatt of solar.
I'm
You're not
pretty sure we
diversifying.
talked about, if storms were going on in Pratt versus storms going on here. That was discussed at some level at one of our meetings. I don't remember if it was committee or anything, but that was discussed at some level.
Is that a real concern?
It has to be. I mean, look at what happened in winter storm, what, Erie? Is that what it was? Or whatever that winter storm was? I mean, that
Well,
was,
Winter Storm Uri, what saved us was our own generation and our contract with GRDA. I mean, if we're being honest, the cost of diesel was locked in. We have an insurance policy right there with however many gallons of diesel we can store down at Public Works.
but if you're talking about affordability, that costs us almost twice as much on a kilowatt compared to what.
Yeah, but look what other communities had to pay.
No, I get it.
That was a victory.
We definitely saved money. I mean, we saved $700,000, I think, compared to Eudora
Pretty close,
for
yeah.
what they had to pay during that storm. So
Right.
I'm not saying that we didn't save money. I'm just saying that, you know, if you,
That's another point that needs to be said. I mean, I'm okay playing it safe. I really am. We should err on that side, but we're pumping all this money into our own generation and buying all these new generators. Well, what for? If you're not gonna pass on this, if this is too risky that you want to latch on to Pratt, what's the point of owning all this stuff? I understand if the lines go down, you have that, and that's really the majority of it, but if you're worried about Winter Storm Uri and things like that in cloudy days, I mean, our own consultant from KMEA, you know, told us that we have a little bit of wiggle room here. That generation is our own insurance policy. Let's
Yeah, but you
let's
keep
use
putting
it.
back
Let's
with
use it as an opportunity to make more affordable decisions down the road. I just don't see it.
I mean, but all things fair, the consultant also recommended 3 megawatts of Pratt and 2 megawatts of GRDA and didn't mention anything about community solar. That was the
He also said he had no idea about anything we were talking about community solar, and he admitted he did not come prepared to talk about that at all.
Yeah, I get it. I mean,
I still feel that I would go with Pratt, just for the security. Your solar that you do yourself is risky. I mean,
And we haven't even had a discussion about 30 years from now, how much of the equipment's going to have to be replaced.
The panels are warranted. They have 0.5% degradation a year. So you would have at year 20, 90% efficiency from your panels with no bond payment.
yeah.
You also have an O&M contract where all the maintenance, all your catastrophe insurance is covered. I am not scared about going to that project one bit. I've looked a lot at it. I mean, I've had my eyes on it quite a bit. I see the allure of that 1 megawatt. I do. But if we're serious about doing our own solar project, it's a redundancy. And it costs us. It's in the way. Because we can't push all of our solar back to the grid. That 1 megawatt's in our way and we have to buy it regardless. So if you want to do a solar project down the road, you want to add 3 megawatts and we're already at our load, it don't matter. And you can't push any more back because our substation can't handle it.
You make valid points. I mean, I think there's valid points on definitely each side.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's really wrong in this conversation. There's so much to be considered.
I'm good either way. Really. I just want everybody to get, and it doesn't sound like we're going to, everybody to get to a comfortable spot on all of this to where it's palatable for everybody. Because these are decisions that are going to affect Baldwin for the next 30 to 40 years.
And that's my concern with putting all of our eggs in one basket when it comes to community solar is what if we can't agree with what land we want to use? Or, I mean, there's too many unknowns there for me.
Glenn, what's worst case scenario on the community solar? You've been the one that has discussed this with the companies the most. What do you see as worst case scenario on a cost per kilowatt?
Probably close to Pratt because you'd only get like 30% tax credits, and you know the RECs wouldn't sell when maybe the interest rate's a little bit higher, and maybe our land cost is higher than. So it'll come in at or about well, it could come in slightly over, what you talk about with Pratt. So those would be kind of everything going against you.
That's worst case though.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include the benefits after year 20.
No, I would
So that's
just doing head to head.
right.
So Corey, I guess I'm going to go back to this. So are you saying that you are wanting, or what you would support more than anything is sticking with 2 GRDA and going 3 community solar and just forgetting about Pratt?
I would forget about Pratt. I would go 2 is fine from GRDA. I think it's nice to have that base load now. And you can't make all your decisions on future technology that's unknown. I get that. I'm not trying to sit at like made the poker table analogy earlier. I'm not trying to play poker here, but the battery technology is just getting better and better and better. And as that technology gets better, all those extra megawatts that you have that you're normally trying to push through your substation back out to the grid and sell to the market that you struggle with because our substation can't handle it, all that, you're putting it in batteries. This is maybe 10, 15 years down the road. You're putting it in batteries, you're storing it, and now you have base power. That's the allure. That's one of the, and it's a residual allure. It's kind of a, it's kind of a side note there, but it's just solar now during the day, and what you get's what you get. But as the battery technology goes on and on, now Pratt does have a little bit of that battery incentive in there. It's not quite what we'd be getting if we did it ourselves, but I don't see the same risk that others are seeing. There is risk. You have to acknowledge the risk, but with the O&M contract, with the catastrophe coverage, with the fact that these panels would track the sun and the static ones that we have currently don't, the inverters they have to be better than the ones that we're currently dealing with. I'm not feeling as unsafe as I think others might be.
So the tracking to me is, I mean, that's just a production thing.
It's efficiency.
Yeah, it's a production thing. Jeff, I want to ask you. Sorry, I know you feel like you're getting up, but I know your legs are getting tired from sitting
Yeah,
there.
get your step.
So I know that you kind of has hesitancy early on about community solar and bringing more community solar in, and you really wanted us to kind of go into the Pratt. You know, you liked the KMEA's thought of 3 and 2 with GRD and Pratt. Walk me through. You're the expert in the room right now. You know our system better than anybody. And what would you say? I mean, if you were sitting in my seat, our seat, they vote. I don't. What would you say?
Well, to back up on what you're saying about KMEA's recommendation of 3 Pratt, their recommendation was 2 of GRDA and 3 of either a large scale or community solar.
Mm-hmm.
What Neil said the other night is he's not privy to what the pricing is on community
Correct.
solar. That's
Right.
something that we've done internally.
He didn't know we were
So
talking
he
about
did
it.
not he could not compare that financially to the large scale project.
Correct.
So so I don't think they're against community. He just couldn't talk as to the financial aspect of. To get to your other question, I see both ways. There's some things I've thought about over the time. If your desire is to own more land, it's a way of offsetting some of the cost of the land. If you do a project on your own, land is always a good investment. As far as if you want it, the easiest project would be the Pratt. It's hands off. You don't have to do anything. Your pricing is set. Community solar, there is more risk because anytime you're not producing, then the overall cost goes up because you're still spending your money on your bond and your O&M and all that, but your number of kilowatt hours produced goes down, so that just increases your overall levelized cost over the years. So there is a risk to that. So I could go either way when it gets to where the price is similar. And like we've said, over the 30 years, the price is similar. it's within 10% of each other, and it'll be depending on, complete project cost and land cost and O&M. So,
It should also be mentioned, this hasn't even been thrown out yet. If you don't do Pratt and you're sitting there and let's say we even miss out on GRDA, we say, our solar, your worst case scenario is that you're doing like so many cities do, and they buy off the open market, which has been a better rate than we've been paying the last few years. So that needs to be mentioned as well. That you're not just stuck without the lights on, like, oh no, we didn't get our contract in time. Like, towns buy off the open market all the time. This is just kind of getting yourself more diversified, which we have done.
But the market goes up and down, so
That's right. Yeah. And so
it's risky, and I don't think I agree with the risk.
you're always going to have some risk. There's risk with Pratt. It's a
Well,
cloudy day, you're at risk. That's risk. I mean, that's
Now, you
daily
have-
risk.
you have no insurance that your community solar is going to be producing either.
But
And
your best.
have that with,
yeah.
with the Pratt project.
I mean, your biggest guarantees are GRDA and the open market. Those are usually on, unless you're in Texas during Winter Storm Uri. I mean, those are always on. Anything outside of that, you're going to be entertaining some risk. Pratt has a lot of risk. Pratt gets a stretch of cloudy days, you ain't producing.
did I answer your question? I don't feel like I did, but.
You stayed in the middle, Jeff.
Stick your neck out there, Jeff.
At least nobody's mad at you.
Honestly, I think both have their pros and cons, and I guess it's your guys' decision to make. Are you wanting a little more risk at a chance of getting a lower cost over the 30 years, or are you wanting to say, look, we're locking this in, for the next 30 years? So to me, the pricing's similar, so it's not going to make a whole lot of difference one way or the other.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. All right. Well, whatever you guys want to do. I will.
And towards the 1 megawatt with Pratt.
I will entertain a motion either way.
I move to pass the resolution 2024-20 for 1 megawatt of solar power from Pratt.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I second it.
Been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Julie?
Yes.
Motion passes 2-1. Next agenda item is the COLA. This is the annual increase for our employees. I believe it's set at 2%. Is that correct, Glenn?
Well, the current urban consumer price index is 2.7. So it's been actually inching up over the past few months. So we typically do 2 or 3. I think last year we did 2. Typically before that we've done 3. And then you also have a chance to earn up to 2% on your evaluations for.
Oh, okay.
employees.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's the 2%
Okay,
that's
yep.
fixed. So
Sorry.
yeah, given the fact it's heading toward 3, and who knows what's going to be for the next 12 months. Again, crystal balling that out there, but I do see it edging up here, and you can actually go to the federal, their database there and track that. It had been trending lower for for the past year or so, but now it's trending back up a little bit. So I was recommending just a flat 3.
What do we have budgeted?
We usually do the 5% overall.
Okay.
So. But not everybody gets their 2%. I mean, that depends on your eval, of course. But
Okay.
we always figure in that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, council discussion. I would, I guess, recommend the 3% cost of living increase and just keep it, not try to make it 2.7 or anything.
That's
If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to set the cost of living allowance for all city employees at 3% for 2025.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, council seat appointment. So based on the feedback from the council, from the interviews, I am recommended Jay King to be appointed to the open council seat. Is there anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, council discussion? Not, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the appointment of Jay King to city council.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Jay King,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws
Constitution and laws
of the state of Kansas,
in the state of Kansas,
and the laws and ordinances
and the laws and ordinances
of the city of Baldwin City,
in the city of Baldwin City,
and to the best of my judgment,
and to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability,
skill, and ability,
will truly,
faithfully,
diligently,
diligently,
and
impartially perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of council member for the city of Baldwin City,
of council member of the city of Baldwin City,
as such duties are prescribed by law.
as such duties are prescribed by law.
All right, Jay, you will take your seat right there by Susan. Jay will be on the Public Safety Committee and the Public Works Committee. So if Susan and Julie could, I guess, get with Jay and kind of come up with meeting times, because your meeting times may fluctuate now. So anyways, congrats, Jay.
Thank you.
We're saying that now because in about 6 months, you're going to be thinking something different.
After tonight's meeting, you might be wishing you weren't here.
Okay, so with that, budget and finance, Corey, I'm going to point to you.
We didn't, did we meet before the last council meeting?
We did not meet.
No.
Not
But
since,
we are meeting.
Well, not since the work session.
Not since the work, since the work session. Yeah, so no meeting since the work session where we discussed exactly what was on that previous agenda.
I don't think we are meeting
I don't
Friday.
think so either.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, so tentatively, no meeting this Friday. And the next time we'll meet will be the Friday following the next council meeting, which will be after the 21st. It'll be the 24th.
I don't doubt you meet on Christmas week.
No, January.
January.
Oh, yeah.
So we probably
Well, I'm
we should
sure
probably meet before then.
I'm sure we'll meet before then. But,
Yeah.
But
Okay, so
Scott will let
to
everybody
be
know.
determined.
Good.
Yep.
You're next again. Community development.
Yeah, we met yesterday. My daughter got sick in the middle of the meeting, and I had to go home real quick, so I missed out on the one agenda item that we had. But you guys can fill in a
Yeah.
little bit more.
We just,
Reviewed the contracts with the rec. Is essentially sent back some potential changes for them around just the cleaning fees and different things like that. And then obviously when we get those back and get that all settled, we'll plan on bringing those to the council at the meeting in January for you guys all to review and see what you think. That's essentially it on that committee.
Next meeting will be in January, and it will be Monday, the 20th, 4 o'clock, second floor, City Hall.
Okay. Public safety, Susan.
We met on December 10th. We discussed the interlocal cooperation agreement that we voted on tonight, and also just briefly touched on the livestock ordinance we previously brought to City Council. Casey's going to have you maybe draw up a
Oh, yeah.
conditional use permit that maybe he hasn't already talked
I have not talked to him. It took me 3 days to get a text message back.
Our next meeting is scheduled for January 14th at 4 o'clock, if that works for you.
It should.
Okay.
Can I add a amendment real quick? I just realized that the 20th is Martin Luther King Day. Offices will be closed and people will be recognizing that day. So I'm going to push that CDC meeting to the 27th, 4 o'clock, second floor of City Hall, if that's okay with you guys.
Yep.
All right.
Good.
Mhm.
January 14th at 4.
Jay, does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. Public Works, Julie.
We did not meet. I had canceled the meeting, but I did get some information from the guys, so I'll go ahead and give you that. With the generation, Foley was able to get Unit 9 wired and was able to run a couple of times. And Foley and Mid-States will be on site with the goal to get Unit 10 wired and running and try to produce power with the Unit 9. There hasn't been any work on the pools for a couple of weeks. I'm sure everybody realizes that. 3 fire hydrants have been repaired repaired or replaced in the last month. Working on replacing the last hydrant at 7th and High. The sidewalk will need to be cut and jackhammered, then replaced. Edgerton updated water contract is being reviewed, and that should be coming to the council for review soon. City of Lawrence changed out master meter at the North Meter Station. The SCADA connection is being worked on, and our next meeting is January 9th at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Let me know if that works for you.
I will.
Okay, no problem.
Strategic planning, Julie.
We have not met, and Scott has not relayed to me any information or any meeting time.
City Administrator, staff comments?
Nothing further.
I only have a couple things, unless
I had
council,
something
go ahead.
too.
Go ahead.
Do we have any update on our substation stuff? As far as, have we got a contract for the land or?
Glenn's been working on that.
Made an offer this week, and she has left me a voicemail today. I'll get back to her tomorrow. So I think we're close.
Okay, great. Are we ever gonna get our crosswalk?
So I actually reached out to BG this week, last week. I sent an email to him. Their planning stages have been done. The engineering's done. They've sent it to KDOT now for review and for bid letting. So
Okay,
sounds like spring, late spring, early summer.
25?
Yes, it better be.
Okay,
Good clarification.
Yeah, this is a legit question.
But yeah, I did. I sent an email to Jason
Okay.
last week,
okay,
just checking in on that.
great.
The only this is Dakota's last meeting.
Oh, poor
You will be getting sworn in before our next meeting, so he is off to somewhat. I'm not even going to say greener pastures. He's just off to a different pasture. But I've appreciated working with him over the last 3 years, and we do have a plaque coming for you. It just wasn't done for tonight, so I do expect that to be held and hung up in your county office, in a very prominent place.
I'm collecting plaques right now, and then there'll be a prominent place. I would say I'll be back here for court next month. So if you want to get in trouble before then, you can see me at city court. But really briefly, I did want to say thank you to the mayor and to all the council members, the city staff I've worked with here over the last 3 years as city attorney, and then also previously to that as the city judge. I know you guys were talking about emergency management systems and the county's input into Baldwin City and what happens here. And I think one of the main things I want to take away from this too is that in my new role, having far more communication, input from Baldwin City, working with Chief to make sure that Baldwin City is not paying taxes to the county and not getting the services that everyone else in the county is getting. So that's a really important role going forward. And I think I've learned that over the last 5 years that there's a lot to offer in Baldwin City and a lot of folks here who pay their taxes, who are part of the community and doing their part and want to see people from the county back down here to support this community and make sure it's growing and make sure it's receiving its fair share of communication and services. So going forward, I plan on being back here often to meet with folks and work with the police, the council, and then staff here as well, just to make sure that Baldwin City and its constituents are being heard going forward.
Thank you for that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your swearing in is when?
January 13th
You're planning on working as city attorney up until that day?
till January 12th. Yep.
Just want to make sure.
Thanks, Dakota.
Did our live stream ever come back up tonight? Okay. That segues me that we're going to be streaming next month on YouTube only. It'll alleviate hopefully some of these issues from my understanding. We get some from dual streaming, but we will be live streaming. That link will be posted on our website as well. So just so everybody knows. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.